Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Agatha All Along, Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So immediately picking up in the aftermath of last episode, Agatha deciding she's going to run before everyone that's come to kill her is going to come and kill her, but then she hears from character known as Teen, who's like, yo, I need to go down the witch's road. In fact, he even says, so I was wondering at the time, I was like, what was the spell he was chanting? I was like, did nothing. And it's like, he's taking credit for, oh, I'm the one that broke you free of your spell. I mean, obviously it seems like it was already cracking, but it did seem like after, well, no, because before he started doing that, it was already cracking more and more. I feel like that's BS. I think he's taking credit for that, but I don't think he actually did anything. Or maybe he did help it along. I don't know. The spell was already cracking a little bit beforehand, because before she even said anything, before he even started chanting, it's like, why are you showing me this pictures of flowers? Why are you staring at that painting? And then he started doing the chanting. But then I guess like that made it easier. But Aubrey's character is the one that really helped her break out. But it's like, you know, she was already having some reactions beforehand, so I do feel like it's 100% BS, but whatever the case may be. He wants to go down the witch's road because he's like, yeah, I know stuff. He's like, I'm kind of obsessive. I know all there is to know about you, which is interesting when you consider the fact is people think he is who he is. Once the running theory for a while, before the show even started coming out, the running theory has been that that character is one of Wanda's kids, Billy, or I was trying to think for a second what was his superhero name. It's Wiccan. So that's who people think that character is, like an older version. Once again, we don't know how that all works, but especially when all the details kind of line up, where he talks about it later on. He's like, oh yeah, my mom died and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, I need to know all there is to know about you, and we don't actually know where he's from, which there's interesting elements to that, because it seems like he's bound by some spell, but he doesn't recognize it. So, but Agatha did, because it's like the moment he starts saying his actual name, it like his mouth gets covered, and you're like, what? And he starts saying all these details, and Agatha notices. She's like, what? Turns up the music. She's snapping her fingers, like, wait, I'm hearing stuff. So my hearing is it. So I'm like, whatever. And that she tries to cover it up later on when he's around other witches, because it's like, I guess she doesn't want them to draw attention to it, because he's completely unaware of the spell. So we don't know if other people will be affected by it, or is it only Agatha who can't hear him when it comes to details about who he actually is. So I was like, that's interesting. Like, who put that bind on him? Like, and whatever it was, that's what sparked her interest on, like, taking him along, which I thought was interesting. I do wonder if she's still a little bit under the spell, because the moment, like, he's like, all right, let's go to the car, and she sits down in front of a desk, and there's a thing, and there's a mirror, and it's like, she's like, no, this is not a car. I'm like, okay, we're just going to get up from this. I'm like, is she still a little loopy from the spell, where she's still kind of seeing some stuff or not? I don't know if that's what's supposed to be, like she's still groggy from the spell or something, where it's like some little tiny bit of it is still present or whatever. Whatever the case may be, they immediately bounce. You know, once again, they gotta find a coven so they can go down the road, which Agatha's going down the road before, but she needs, you know, backup to actually go down the road again. Which I almost think that's fascinating, knowing that you can actually go down the road multiple times. It seems like, you know, typical things of like, oh, you do something, it feels like a one and done. So I feel like if you've been down the road, you can't go again. But maybe it's a thing of, if she's surrounded by other people who've never been down the road, then maybe it kind of gives her a tag-along pass. So it's like, right, you get to go along because other people have it. Because the fact is, she can't go. I mean, I wonder. I guess the question is, did she go down the road before with her coven, the same coven she ended up murdering all those years ago? I also think it's actually interesting, a little detail. I'm sure some people are not going to like that, because obviously some people did not like what happened. You know, Multiverse of Madness, movie-wise aside, but a big part of that is Wanda's story, and people didn't like the direction that went. It's actually kind of even sadder for Wanda fans when you consider, like, oh, like the house, especially like what that house meant for her and Vision. So you look at it, and there's like it's like they show like Wanda's symbol, like from like, you know, the crown of her outfit as the Scarlet Witch, and there was something else besmirching about her as a witch, and then like it's just like, yeah, that's kind of like the no-no zone. Like everyone's kind of like, oh, like this is kind of like a mark against that plot, and I think it speaks volumes that it's been 3 years and no one's done anything with that, because it's like that's where Scarlet was. I mean, you know, that's where Wanda was, and it's sad too, considering like what that place meant. And I'm sure some people feel a certain way, and even Agatha spitting on the ground, and I was like, understandable. So, which is like, oh man, that's just, you're kind of just like, oh, that's sad. But I mean, regardless of how you feel about it, that's the direction the MCU ultimately ended up going. So it's just kind of like, oh, poor Wanda. You know, her memory will forever be besmirched in that regard, you know, because that's all she'll be I mean, understandably for this town, she will just be evil. There's no, like, redeeming her in their eyes. You know, once again, she's the boogeyman, so it's like, shh, we don't say Wanda's name out loud. I feel bad for the team, because he's got this like very optimistic, plucky energy, and then he's kind of got to deal with like Agatha, who's so like no nonsense, and just kind of like, he's like, oh, do you want to jot that down for me? She's like, oh my god, oh yeah, you got a pen and a glow? Oh god, yeah. Oh this is, and throws out the window. It's like, oh, you want me to do that to the notebook too? He's like, no, I'll remember. I'm like, Jesus, Agatha, you have to be an asshole about it. But yeah, she's in recruitment mode this episode. First up was it Lilia? And I love that it's like, oh, we're here for a fortune teller, and just like Agatha telling this, like putting on a southern accent, being like, oh, my husband. I was like, oh, this is my son. Was it Beaufort or whatever? And it's like, yeah, he's just he doesn't speak much, and it's just like, oh, my husband's gold bars. But then Lilia played along, and then eventually was like, yeah, I know who you are. Your reputation precedes you, so. She also has her, like, and Agatha's like, right, we're going to, like, who said I'm looking for right-minded witches? And it seems like Lilia's quirk is she's seeing stuff that isn't there. I wonder, is that just like the backlash of being a divination witch? I said wife, Jesus. Divination witch. That, like, it's just the price you pay. Like, it's just kind of, you know, maybe we haven't really covered, obviously this is our first foray into like witchcraft in this universe, but I mean, it depends, you know. I have enough, I say enough experience because of like Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and just anything else magic related. It's the whole element of there's always going to be a price to pay for magic, so I'm wondering what the price to pay is. Like, there's no way it's just like oh, willy-nilly, no problem. It's like there's got to be like backlash from certain forms of magic. Like, you kind of have to pay some price in a sense. But and maybe that's her price, or maybe it's just being older or whatever, and she's losing her mind. I don't know, but it seems like she's seeing stuff that's not there. But I don't know if that's her divination playing with her mind, or whether her mind's just kind of like slowly getting eroded because of the divination. I don't know. But she seems a little kooky, a little crazy. And I do love that, like they kind of come as a 1-2 punch of Teen and Agatha, of kind of like, ooh, like giving the pitch to the different witches, you know. So because Lilia ended up having a divination, and it ended up leading to her writing a whole bunch of names down, and her own name is on the list, and she's like, wait, what? It's like, oh yeah, you can't say no to you. To yourself, so you are a part of the coven. Here's Agatha's address. Meet us here before sundown. So they're going through the list, and I do think it's interesting that Agatha constantly sees these animals. It's like a raven or a crow, and then there's a wolf, and then there's a rat. And she's like, well, we know she has her rabbit, so it does beg the question, are those other witches familiars, or like, could we see this? I think what's supposed to be the Salem 7 at the end of the episode, are these animals supposed to be very specific signs of them showing up or something? Like, because every time she saw one of the animals, the only one she didn't see was the wolf. No, she saw the wolf. I was thinking that Teen saw the wolf. It's like, no, she saw the wolf. That was like the final sign. So I don't know if that them being in any particular order, maybe there's a certain energy released from, I don't know, but like, she definitely got like weirded out every time she saw one of them. So two things I want to also mention. One, I meant to talk about this last episode, completely forgot about it, but I want to talk about it before I forget, is I think it's interesting that the ending of the episode, I like that it's basically taking witchy stuff from all types of books and folklores and cartoons and any like media version of like witches. Like we see like a little bit of the opening of Bewitched, or we see a few scenes from like The Craft and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of neat, just pulling from like witches from all media type of situation. I thought that was kind of a dope thing. I meant to talk about that last episode but forgot. The other thing is we learned a little, like, I guess it's kind of implied but we never knew this. Agatha can't just straight up steal your power. The reason why she never just like straight up stole Wanda's power until like the very end, as like she has to be attacked first. And I love that she tells that to Lilia. She's like, okay, so you don't have to worry about me stealing your powers the moment we go down the road. I kind of need to, you need to kind of attack me first. And as long as you show self-restraint, you don't have to worry about me stealing your powers. Which I was like, interesting. Which also adds interesting context to Aubrey's character from last episode. Because if you notice, what was she trying to do? Kill her the entire time with a knife. Yes, she blasted her like using like wind and force to like knock her back, but never like actual energy. Because it seems like no one else knows that, because like Agatha had to make a point to tell Lilia about that. So like, I mean, it's understandable. Why would you tell anyone your weakness? Because people will be less likely to attack you, because they'll be like, whoa, I'm not going to attack you with magic. If I attack you with magic, you're just going to steal it, you know? But like, the fact is Aubrey's character knew that, means like, okay, we already knew there was some history there, but for her to know that weakness, I don't know, man. Like I said, it feels like it adds maybe validity to my thing of there might be a romantic history there. Maybe not. Because like, you have to be pretty close to someone for them to know your vulnerabilities and weaknesses like that. Either way, next person on the list ended up being Jennifer, who is the potions witch, and turns out she had her powers bound, and she tried to be like, right, I don't need this like community. But Agatha's like, dude, you would chew off your own acrylic nails right now if it meant being part of the club again. So I'm wondering what she did that warranted that. Now she's also got to deal with lawsuits, which I love the team being like, I mean, you know, I wouldn't call like some like superficial burns, you know, injury. He's like, despite some people, you know, having to get skin grafts and stuff like that. And I love, like I said, that 1-2 punch of just like, especially the second pitch, he's the one kind of leading the charge, or like, you kind of need this, because it's like, well, you're going to be serving like 8 years in prison, and then Agatha being like, oh my god, you are bound magically, and now you're going to literally be bound. And it's just like the back and forth with them kind of convincing Jennifer to join, because they're like, yeah, you'll be dealing with like 80 counts for, you know, and all that kind of stacking up. So she kind of needs her magic. She needs to be able to kind of become a witch again. I think it was her who made the thing of like, oh, who's this kid? Is this another child sacrifice? Which Agatha kind of like looked at her sharply for. So once again, the hair in the locket. So it's like, did she have a child? Did she sacrifice her own child? Was this pre her being a witch or coming to her witchhood? Did she sacrifice a child? It seems like, I don't know. Like I said, the whole potential dead child thing in the first episode, plus tied into this locket of hair inside of said pendant / locket. So there was number 2 on the list. Then, but they ended up convincing Jennifer. Then Agatha ate the note because she didn't want the teen to see the next person on the list. And you're like, who would it be? And well, we find out later on, it was a black heart, meaning it's Aubrey's character, because she's an earth witch. So that's who they needed for this, you know. But the next person on the list is Alice. Apparently her mom was like a well-known witch who apparently died on a witch's road, and so she doesn't know anything about her mom. That's actually how they convinced her of like, well, ended up getting her fired from her job, and then was kind of like, cool, it's kind of all meant to work out, so you need to work with us, because hey, you'll finally get answers to the questions you've always wondered. What happened to mommy? So does make you wonder. So I also think it's interesting, like she's an ex-cop and everything, so everyone's got to play their role. Because she's like a blood witch, isn't she? Isn't, or at least her mom was a blood witch, so kind of making her one type of situation. I forgot like what her actual, was she the blood witch in that? She's the protection witch, because yeah, I think that's supposed to be her role. So I'm sure going forward we'll kind of get a better understanding. I mean, everyone's role so far seems clearer, but I'm curious what her role, like how that really manifests itself. But yeah, they're supposed to need a Earth Witch, and she doesn't want to go to Aubrey's character for help because they're like, well, Aubrey, she betrayed her and wants her dead. Like, it seems like the only person she has direct history with amongst the crew so far is Jennifer, because everyone else just knows her by reputation. Like Lila and Alice seem to only know her by reputation, but Jennifer and her seem like they've crossed paths in over the years or something, like way back in the past, before she was bound as a witch. Before she was bound, of losing her witch powers and stuff. So desperate for an Earth Witch, she ends up going to Sharon, which I love that, because it's like, oh, she's like, I guess she knows, like, right, you have a green thumb, so you're on the cusp, because the whole point of, like, she had made that note, the thing that the teen was trying to make a note of, it's like, covens kind of find themselves, like, as long as you're kind of in the vicinity of each other, you're going to just, like, fate will draw you together, and just kind of, it ignites that spark in you. So, and I love Sharon being like, no, Mrs. Hart, my name is Mrs. Davies. Mrs. Hart is the character Wanda made me. It's like, okay, oh, good. Still thinking she's Agnes and not recognizing she's become Agatha. It's like, well, once again, how much did they really know of? I mean, they saw the witch fight. They were all from underneath the spell by that time, and it's like, well, they don't know what she's up to. Once again, they just kind of like, oh, she's been our neighbor Agnes, who's been a little weird, but now she's back and she's okay, and she's been a little off, but yeah. So she kind of gets dragged along to the basement, and it's like, cool, we need to sing the Witch's Road ballad, and it's like, okay, and it's like, oh, who's going high, and her being like, ooh, I don't do drugs, which I'm like, that line seems to have, I don't know if it's intentionally meant to have a double meaning. Obviously, the thing I feel like most people would best know Deborah Jo Rupp from is playing Kitty on That 70s Show and That 90s Show, which I haven't started yet. So I don't know if this line is still applicable anymore, but it's like, well, of course she would, it feels like that was kind of like a wink and nod to That 70s Show and stuff, because it's like, well, she never got high, but her son and his friends would get high in their basement, so, especially because they're in a basement right now, and they sing the Witch's Road ballad, which I think is pretty dope. If you look at the lyrics, they're all the title of, at least the title of the episode so far have been lyrics from the Witch's Road ballad, which I thought was pretty dope. I guess we're not going to get like a different intro, like a la WandaVision. I think they only did it for that as kind of like an homage to WandaVision for the first episode. We'll see. This is only the second episode, so maybe things will change later on in the season, but it doesn't seem like the show has like an intro. Like, they only did that one because of the spell for Agatha, and just, I think that was meant to be an homage to WandaVision, but it seems like that's not going to be the rest of the season. Once again, but only episode 2, that could change later on. I actually really like the Witch's Road ballad, and it's actually really good. I love just Sharon being like, am I supposed to know this song? But she actually started kind of getting into it. But all the while they're doing this, trying to summon the Witch's Road, the door to the Witch's Road. The teen is upstairs dealing with, like, the Salem 7, which I wonder if their whole deal is like, oh, we are the 7. I don't know how many witches were killed in Salem. So I Googled it really quickly because I was like, I wonder if it's supposed to be that how many people died during the witch trials, the Salem witch trials, but it's like, no. Based on what I was Googling, at least, that I guess is known, like, record-wise, at least 25 people died in totality, just across different aspects of the whole witch trial situation. So, but maybe it's just like these 7 governing, like, maybe they're kind of, I don't know if they're supposed to be like these overseers of, like, witchhood, of, like, they represent it, and, like, maybe they're meant to hunt down those who have wronged the witch community or something. Like, maybe they're just kind of like the witch version of, like, I don't know. Like it could. I don't know what would be the best way to phrase it. The immediate thing that comes to my mind. It's a weird reference to make. It's just kind of quite the pull. Kind of like the whole Dahaka situation. Isn't that it from Prince of Persia: Warrior Within, the second Prince of Persia from the rebooted, the Sands of Time trilogy. The Dahaka was coming after the prince because he was supposed to die, but he kept rewinding time. And it's like, I don't know if it's supposed to be something similar to that, where it's like, right, you wronged the witch community, so the Salem 7 hunt you down. And it's almost like, because like, isn't there a thing in like the Flash, like the Black Flash is like the Flash of Death or something like that, and it comes after you? Because that's what, in the TV show, what Zoom became, if I remember correctly. I don't know if like these Reapers, it's what I'm trying to go for. It's like, is that what they're supposed to be? What they represent? Like, who are they specifically? Like, are they very 7 specific witches that are supposed to have died and have come back as like Reapers in that regard, or what their whole deal is? I'm just throwing out speculation, but either way, they come to Agatha's house, and Agatha's kind of okay. Normally it doesn't take this long for the door to appear, because she's like, you usually don't have to go that far, I guess. So she's like, it's rare that you have to sing the entire song to get the door to pop up. So I love that she's like talking all kinds of shit, trying to get everyone charged up. But Lilia's the one be like, no. You want us to attack you so you can steal our powers. And it's like, oh, because she's saying all the hurtful stuff, being like, oh, you're not real witches, and you're not a coven, yada, yada, yada. But it's like, yeah, you kind of made a mistake of telling Lilia your weakness, that you have to be attacked to absorb powers. So they're like, cool. So, no, we're not going to fall for that. And so, well, fortunately for Jennifer, like, her powers are bound, so it wouldn't been able to do anything. Lilia has hers, but then like Alice, I think you saw her kind of charging up a little bit. So, but luckily the door did appear, and they immediately made their way down, and poor Sharon getting dragged along. So definitely going to be interesting to see. I love the whole thing of you have to take your shoes off going down the Witch's Road, that's one of the lines in the outro. If you looked at it, they even like underline it and circle it, like, oh, you have to take your shoes off, go down the road barefoot. So now we begin the Witch's Road trials, and it's going to be interesting to see what they actually are. Like I said, the only thing I've seen is the teaser, so I don't know fully what to expect. But I'm excited to see kind of like the aesthetic and elements we get as they go down the Witch's Road, what these trials are, what they represent. And once again, the roles that everyone plays, and just finding out about people, finding out about Agatha's past along the way, finding out about the secrets that this teen has and stuff like that. Which is so interesting, because the whole thing about Agatha in the first episode being like, oh yeah, a town and its secrets being buried deep. Once again, that's supposed to be like a, cliche, like procedural of like, oh, every town has its secrets when you're unraveling this murder mystery or something like that. Plus Agatha herself had, didn't know who she really was at the time, but also like there's mysteries there to be unearthed, but also about this teen and who he really actually is, if he is in fact Billy, if he is in fact, Wiccan. So we shall see where all this ends up taking us going forward. Obviously, going forward, it's going to be week-to-week episodes, with the exception of 8 and 9. I believe this is going to be 9 episodes like WandaVision. 8 and 9 will be back-to-back like 1 and 2 have been. So, but anyway, I'm excited to see where the rest of the show takes us. Like I said, I have no ideas or expectations. I'm just like here for the ride, and yeah. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.